Um, this is just a short introduction to some of the effective teaching practices that we want to utilize to teach well through our eco courses. There's some of the principles I learned from my education degree and my own reading, and some of the things that I think can be very helpful as you implement them to learn how to create just effective, exciting learning environments where students have autonomy and they develop their own mastery of both material and learning for themselves. So here's some of the principles and resources to teach well. The first is everything routine becomes easy. So no matter what you're starting, whenever you've made something routine where you do it again and again and again, it becomes something that's actually easy. And this principle kind of underlies a lot of what we do in education. If you're always doing something new, a different way of doing things, it gets students like, what are we going to do next? And there's that worry, there's that stress. But if you have certain routines that you just practice again and again, then those become easy for students. And so pick the routines that are the most valuable, the practices that you want to become just second nature. And then those are the things that will become much easier for students to do, whether that's regular essay writing, asking questions, analyzing a text, things like that. This principle, the one who does the work gets the learning, is incredibly valuable. Often it's the professor, the teacher that does all the work in lesson preparation, in preparing slides, in teaching the slides, and the student is just passively receiving the information. And this is likely the worst way for students to learn. And yet this is kind of the majority of what traditional education is. And so the more that you can design your class in such a way that students are the ones who are doing the work, they're the ones preparing slideshows, doing presentations for group members or class members, they're going to get far more learning out of it. So give them active work, give them things to do, problems to solve that maybe aren't original problems, maybe it's not original research, but the more active it is, the more that their learning will be solidified and deepened. So if you want to get all the learning, you do all the work. But if you want students to do learning, you get them to do work. This is kind of sometimes been called the lazy teacher's manifesto, and yet everyone can be happier. So this comes from educator Bell Hooks. True education is both participatory and emancipatory. And what that just means is that the more that students participate, they're part of this learning process. They're part of this journey, the discussions that happen. Their insights are valuable too. You're co-creating knowledge with them. But also emancipatory, that education is a way to set free from the strictures of the way that you grew up, from the expectations of your social community. Jesus said, the truth will set you free. They will know the truth, and the truth will set them free. And so learning the truth is in itself emancipatory, but also learning that you're capable of finding truth. You're capable of separating fact from fiction, of critical reasoning and understanding, analysis. All of these things are tools of freedom and tools of liberation. And so it's not just some giving a bunch of information. You're actually giving students the chance to take part in their own freedom and their own sense of agency deepening as they learn to separate fact from fiction for themselves. So this is a high calling, and this is an incredible opportunity when we participate in true education. One of the most important things in basically every subject is do the real thing. Reading about the thing that they're supposed to do, learning about the thing they're supposed to do will never reach the same level as actually doing the thing. That's why, according to all studies, basically the highest form of education is apprenticeship. It's a lot harder to scale apprenticeship, so it's often a one-to-one relationship, or even 1-to-2 or 1-to-3. So we substitute that with lectures about the real thing, but lectures do not substitute for experience. And so this is something that, as much as it depends on you, the thing that they're training for, that they're going to be doing, let them do that to learn. That's why at Eston College, we believe in real-life ministry experiences for every single class, tying the learning to the activation, to the experience in order to get the best learning. And That's going to be the thing that takes them forward and gets stronger learning. Focus on the boring fundamentals. In every skill, in every subject, there's just a few main skills that you need to get so good at. And if you master those, then everything else becomes far easier. It's more exciting to move ahead quickly, to cover a lot of ground, but it's far better to really master the boring fundamentals, the piano scales, the 3 wrestling moves, whatever it is. And then you can reach a high level. Bruce Lee said, "I do not fear the person who's done 10,000 different kicks. I fear the person who's done one kick 10,000 times." And so it's not quite as exciting, but there's a much deeper level of knowledge that expands to everything. Learning is a team sport. So often we just learn on our own, but learning is collaborative. You get far more diverse perspectives when everybody's sharing about how they learned this thing and their perspectives on what you're learning. It's deeper, it's more intersectional and interconnected, and it's fun. And also, most modern organizations are so much more team-based. And so the more that you can learn as a team, the more that you can hear somebody else's perspective and evaluate it, critique it, share what your own perspective is, the better prepared you'll be for any future job. This is a really important one, creating the best conditions to learn rather than just relying on willpower, especially in terms of cognitive load. The average person can only actually keep 5 to 6 things in their mind at a time. And so if you're introducing a whole bunch of different things, most students are actually going to forget up to 90% of what you taught within 1 week. And so if you can reduce the cognitive load and just really master a few things at a time, you're going to get far better overall learning, even though it might feel like you're going at a slower pace. So focus on reviewing, interleaving, like spacing out what you're learning to the point where you can actually get better overall learning. This one is so important too, because often we'll be like, if you learn, you'll get a good grade. If you learn, you might get a cookie when you're younger or some kind of treat. But inner motivation means that if we always have an external motivator, we're actually going to be less motivated just by learning for learning's sake. If learning is the reward, then you're going to create a classroom with curiosity, with excitement and passion, and you don't need to worry about all these external motivators. You can just let the joy of learning itself be the central motivator. It creates a much better learning environment. Students feel a greater sense of satisfaction, and cheating is no longer as big of an issue because you're not fighting for some external reward. You're actually just fighting for learning. And so cheating, you miss out on learning. And so you're demotivated to cheat. So this is obviously not easy, but it is necessary to have the most optimal learning environment is one where the primary reward is learning itself. So student choice builds autonomy, responsibility, and deep fulfillment. We often tell students what they're going to learn, how to learn, and how to prove what they've learned. And the more that you can build student choice into your assignments, into your classes even, the more that the information will be relevant, and the more that students will be engaged in participating. You can't just make student choice for everything because there are certain rigors and standards that you have to meet. But this is just something to remember, that the more, in your assignments at least, students are able to present their knowledge in different ways, the more that you'll get participation and engagement and a sense of responsibility from students. Model enjoyment. Learning is fun. If you're passionate, if you enjoy what you're learning, then students will enjoy it too. The best learning environments I've been in have been just people super excited about just weird things, and they're not afraid to share that. We can often make learning dour and kind of like serious, but enjoyable learning means that everybody's having more fun. It's a lot easier. You're like, oh yeah, I guess that something that would have been hard becomes easy when it's about enjoyment. And then celebrating and showcasing success. we want to reward people who are putting in effort, reward people who are engaging as well. So just like animal trainers will give a little treat, we give a little bit of praise. Hey, that was really cool. Good question. Good thought or insight that you added to the discussion. When we center our learning around enjoyment, it just makes everything easier and more fun. This one is another powerful principle. We like to think that we're the best teacher, but when students can teach themselves, they are the best teacher because they understand themselves, they know what motivates themselves, and they know the best way to explain things to themselves. So the more that you can, through your assignments, through your classes, have students explain things to each other and students explain things to themselves, the deeper that learning is going to go. Because they're motivated to explain things well to themselves. One of my favorite assignments I do for basically every class is teach this class to an incoming student. Basically, take all that you've learned, create an engaging, funny, interesting slideshow, poster series, whatever, and actually teach the fundamental principles of this class to somebody who would be new to the material. And students say, I learned it so much deeper when I had to teach it. And this goes along with the earlier principle of the one who does the work gets the learning. Have the students teach the material. They're going to practice summarizing it. They're going to think through it, engaging with the best and most important ways to teach the heart of what you're teaching, and they're going to get far more out of it. So here's some basic research that was done that undergraduates learn most when they're asked to solve problems, perform original research, work collaboratively, and receive regular feedback from the professor and their peers. These are the pillars of good education. If you're just lecturing for an entire hour every single class, students are not going to get anywhere near as much and remember as much as if they're doing some of these things. So the more that you're able to incorporate these different aspects into your class, the better. And lastly, Chickering and Gabson came up with 7 principles of strong undergraduate education. The more contact between students and faculty, the better. Reciprocity and cooperation among students, so not just working on a group project or something, but working for a goal and helping each other. Everybody learns better. Active learning rather than just passive receiving. Giving prompt feedback. The longer you take to give feedback, the less valuable that feedback is. The quicker you can give it, especially in class, the better it is for everybody. Easier it is for you. You don't need to have this huge stack of essays necessarily. You can just have them come with one paragraph, with one page, and give them feedback during class. And that will be far more valuable than a lot more feedback, but several days late. Time on task, get people into their seats, get people start working right away. Every minute that they're doing the real thing is a minute better spent learning than just kind of wasting a lot of time. We often don't realize how much time we're actually wasting. Communicating high expectations. In our day and age, we keep lowering our expectations, and students can get away with more and more. But from the beginning, if we have high expectations, it's amazing what students are able to achieve. And lastly, respecting diverse talents and ways of learning. Not everybody learns the same way. That's not to say, there's like kinesthetic learners, there's this and there's that. Some people prefer those, but most testing shows that that's not kind of a real thing. What is a real thing is students have strengths, students have talents, things that they love doing. They have passions and interests. And the more that you allow them to use those passions and interests in learning and in communicating their learning, the more engaged, the more ownership they'll have over what they create. So that's a pretty narrow summary, but I think these are principles I found very helpful in my own journey of teaching, and hopefully you'll find them helpful too. Thanks.